everyone. Welcome. I am Lauren Southards with Coastal Credit Union, and today I am joined by Crystal and Bob to discuss how to bank better with some auto buying tips and tricks. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you, Bob?
Doing great.
Doing great. All right. Well, let's get into it then. Let's start with the three main topics that we will be discussing today. So first we'll be going over some credit reporting tips, and then we will be discussing how you should buy or refinance your vehicle. And then lastly, we will be talking about some things that you should watch out for. So let's get right into the very first one, which is credit reporting. So there are some credit reporting basics that people should know. Can you guys explain this a little bit more?
Sure, I can go first. So as it says here, there are three major credit bureaus that we would like for our members and potential new members to know all about. The first one is Equifax, the second one is Experian, and the third one is TransUnion. So you may or may not see on the three different credit bureaus certain lines of credit that you have. But depending on where you obtain that line of credit, you may see those three bureaus. Now, all of those bureaus basically do the same thing. They collect data on your credit and how you use it. They share this data and then they compile what we call a score, a credit score. And lenders, namely car dealers, which we were talking about today since we're discussing auto buying, that score helps determine what type of rate and terms that you may qualify for. So so it's super important that you know that there are three bureaus out there, because those three bureaus can sometimes carry a slightly different score. They are very much geographical. Most of the things that we will see in our coastal market, it is going to be on our Equifax credit report. But generally, they have the same information. One of the main tips I always offer to members that I speak to, or even my family and friends, is to make sure that they always check their credit report. Now, there are lots of different sites out there, Lauren, that can tell you information on your credit, share credit data with you. A lot of times they say that they are free, but the annualcreditreport.com is the site that we recommend, and you can pull a report there every 12 months for free. And we definitely want to encourage our members to do that.
Yeah, Crystal, it's a really good idea to make sure that you pull your credit report once a year, and also before you go and make a major purchase. So if you're thinking about buying a house, first thing you want to do, house or car or any big purchase, is go ahead and pull your credit report. Make sure that nothing is reporting improperly. Anytime that a computer can get involved, something can get zigged when it should have zagged and can ding you on your credit. And you want to make sure it's accurate. If it's not accurate, you can go in and contest the discrepancy, and they'll do an investigation pretty quickly and contact the bank that's reporting and go ahead and verify it is accurate or that it's not accurate. So always be informed. I would also advise, maybe it's a good idea if you are going to go to a dealership or buy a car from an individual, it's always a good idea to know where you stand, know what rate you can expect, and go ahead and get pre-qualified. Feel free to reach out to Coastal. We think we do it well, probably better than anybody else, getting people fair and equitable rates. So go ahead and reach out to us, and we can help you through that so you're an informed buyer.
Absolutely. I think that is great information. When you talk about the information around the discrepancies, we have an amazing loan servicing department that if something does happen, even here at Coastal, they will quickly investigate that, talk to the credit bureaus, and also can help our members through, even if it's at another institution, just help guide them through the steps on what needs to happen to rectify that information for our members.
Yep.
Awesome.
You got that
So
right.
there are also some credit reporting tips that people should know. The first one is paying on time. Why is that important?
So you want to make sure you're paying your bills on time. That's the biggest indicator of future performance is your past. That's what your underwriter, that's what scorecards are going to look at. When I say scorecards, a lot of banks, credit unions, they've actually taken out a lot of the manual underwriting, and underwriting is the person who reviews the account or the application rather, and makes a judgmental decision. So a lot of computers are doing it, and you really, again, I say if you're not paying your bills on time, your reportable accounts on time, that's going to ding you going in the future when you do try to go get another car loan. So make sure you're paying your obligations on time every month. Now, everybody in America is going to go through some struggles in life. We know that. That's why we feel it's important to have somebody looking at these applications and credit reports and hearing the stories of the buyers when they are the members, when they are coming to us and trying to get a loan. We take all things into consideration, but generally speaking, how you pay now is going to determine how you're going to pay in the future. So it's a good idea. Make sure you don't overextend yourself. You get in, you get into a car that you think you like, and you sit down, and it's, they're really nice. Cars are really nice now, but you got to think, can I afford this car? You don't want to be car poor. Car poor is when your car payment is too expensive for what your income is. You don't want to dedicate too much of your income to buying a car. It's the greatest depreciating asset that an American can have. So understand that too. Get yourself something you can afford, but don't max out your credit. Remember that if you have 6 or 7 credit cards and they're all maxed out, that's going to hurt you. It shows that maybe you're overextended on your revolving debt, and all of those things can come into play. So keep an eye on things. Make sure you don't max things out. If you are maxed out, maybe it's time to, if you're looking to make a big purchase like a car, go ahead and get a few more credit cards, so that'll have your overall credit availability will be high, and then work on paying some of those down at the same time. But again, best advice I can give anybody out there is don't make yourself car poor. It's miserable, and you don't want to do that. Just get yourself something you can afford. It fits in your budget.
And Bob, I'm glad you brought up the information about maxing out credit, because we have at Coastal done a lot of research around that. And generally the 30 to 40%, what we call utilization, how much you're using versus your max available. So if you're looking at something like a $10,000 credit card and you have a $9,000 balance, that's kind of what Bob is referring to, having it maxed out. Where you want to stay right around that 30 to 40% utilization, to make sure you maintain that good credit score, so that when you do go to the dealership to pick up that nice affordable car, as Bob mentioned, and not overextending yourself, it's super important to kind of keep those things in mind. Absolutely. It's a wonderful point. And another thing I'll add on that, that's a great point, Bob, that you brought up, is, that's another great service that Coastal offers. We have a wonderful member service representatives, account managers in our branch that can chat with you even online in this age that we're in right now. Of course, digital is so important, and we have folks that can help you right over the phone, kind of talk you through that situation of, okay, is it time for a debt consolidation loan? I know this session is about auto buying, but we really felt it was important to bring this information to the table as well, because all of these things kind of add to the type of car that you can afford and the things that you should be looking for in a car when it's time to purchase or when it's time to refinance. It all impacts your rates and terms to be able to give you the best deal possible.
So there are also a few more credit reporting tips that people should know, such as why shouldn't someone close their old credit cards, Bob?
Yeah. So longevity, how long you've had your accounts open, is a big part in your credit scores. So having a relationship that you've had, this is a funny story. So I had a friend that worked at the same job for 30 years. It was a pizza restaurant. He still works there. We grew up together, and he still works there. And I remember looking at him, and I was like, you know what? You've never done enough to get fired for 30 years. So if you can imagine having a credit card open for 30 years and it never closed, and you still have that relationship, that's a great thing. It proves that you did them right. And the credit is the same way.
Now,
Absolutely.
Crystal, why should somebody use like bankruptcy as their last resort?
So bankruptcy, and as Bob mentioned earlier, everyone can sometimes fall on hard times. The times that we're in right now, Lauren, with COVID and the impacts that it's made to our members, my heart just goes out to everyone who is having any type of financial difficulty, whether it's losing their job or unable to pay their bills. But we always want to encourage members to reach out to us first and see what we can do to help. Sometimes it will happen where someone will have to file bankruptcy. But the reason why bankruptcy, we would like for that to be a last resort, is because it does impact your credit for so long. And, just recovering from that, it can be painful. I have friends and family that have myself that have gone through it, and it's just a very difficult time trying to recover. And then when you get ready to get into that next vehicle afterwards, especially if you maintained really good credit before, it's going to be a stark difference in the financing and the terms that someone may experience when they go and buy a car. So we just want to make sure that we point that out, not just, of course, never to judge or to say that may not happen to even me, myself. It may happen in the future. Who knows? But it's just a point to make sure that we let people know and encourage folks to reach out to us as an institution and see what we can do to help. And of course, try to maintain that good credit score.
Now, one of the last credit reporting tips is don't forget any credit freezes. Can you guys explain a little bit more like what even a credit freeze is?
Absolutely. So a credit freeze is you have contacted the credit bureaus and you have said, I want to lock my credit report down so nobody can pull my credit. And what that does is, you walk in to buy a car, or you walk into your to Coastal Credit Union or your local branch, and nobody has access to your credit. Now, that's a good thing in my mind. It prevents any fraudulent activity being perpetrated on your account. But you got to understand, if you are going into a car dealership to purchase, you need to unlock it, unfreeze your credit report before you walk in, or they're not going to be able to help you. They're not going to be able to line up financing for you. So remember that it's not a big deal to get it unlocked. They give you a PIN, I think. Just remember, if you are looking to go in and make a purchase, you need to make sure it's unlocked if you have a freeze on it.
Yeah. And we've actually assisted some members with that. My earliest memory was right before COVID, and the member had actually forgotten their PIN. So of course that could happen to anybody. But another great tip with that is when you do talk to the credit bureau and they give you that PIN, you want to make sure you keep that somewhere safe, so that you can remember that and get that unlocked before you try to make a purchase or apply for any credit.
So let's get into talking about some of refinancing your vehicle. Now, there's some things that values, goals you should set before you refinance. Can you go into that a little bit more for us, Bob?
Yes. So why are you looking to refinance? Are you trying to lower your car payment? Are you trying to pay it off faster than your loan terms dictate? So you want to determine what your goal is. And then, the value. If I'll talk about negative equity here. So you go in and you decide that you want to trade in your 4-year-old car that you bought used, and it's depreciated in value faster than your contract. It's not keeping up with the values. Declining value is not keeping up with how quickly you're paying off your car. So let's say your car is valued at $6,000 and you owe $12,000 to pay off your loan. That difference is called negative equity. So these are all things to be mindful of. Negative equity is your enemy if you're a car buyer. You really, when you buy a car, you want to make sure you're holding on to it for a period of time. That also brings in gap insurance, and why gap insurance is really important. Even if you do not have negative equity, I would say anybody that has a loan to value ratio under 60% need not worry about gap insurance. If you are rolling in negative equity, make sure you have gap insurance. It's really important. We offer it here as a secondary product. If you have an account that you have financed that you bought at a car dealership, and you did not sign up for a gap policy, we can add one to your account here. I suggest doing that. And there's some good third-party websites out there that describe what gap is in better detail than I am right here. But I highly recommend, if you buy a new car, and people, I'll say this. One thing that they'll say, you'll hear people say is, well, I have really good car insurance. If somebody hits you and it's their fault, your car insurance is not going to have anything to do with how much insurance, how good your insurance is and how much the other person's insurance is going to pay. They're only going to give you the bare minimum that they can for the value of your car. And this covers that gap in the difference between what you owe the bank and what the vehicle is worth, hence the gap. It's guaranteed asset protection, but I like to explain that it covers that gap in the difference. So look into that before you buy, before you sign. It is important.
Crystal, what is the importance of comparing rates before you refinance and everything?
Oh, Lauren, that is super important. Of course, when you look at the things that Bob brought in, and you take that next step of, okay, I'm ready to apply. You do absolutely want to compare rates. Every institution has different interest rates that they offer, and depending on if you're looking at a new car, if you're looking at a used car, those options can definitely vary. For a refinance, first, I would start here at Coastal. Like Bob said, I think we do it very well. We are very competitive, particularly in this market. And if you are looking to refinance your vehicle, check here first. We have great account managers and things like that, folks that can help you. It will actually save you money, just rate comparison. So you want to make sure that you get the lowest rate that you can qualify for your credit. Here at Coastal, it's definitely something that we encourage to make sure we save members as much money as possible. And then, once you compare rates and you've looked at your goals and the values and things like that, Bob referred to, when you get ready to come here to Coastal, it is just as you can, see here on the slide, just a very minimum information, your current information for your insurance, your driver's license, and then just a little bit of information about your auto loan. And it is really, really a very quick process. And like I said, you can do that, in the branch, and you can also do that through our digital channel. The easiest way to start on the digital channel is just going to our website and applying online at coastal24.com/auto.
Great. That sounds super easy. Sounds very easy. So let's go more into how to purchase a car then instead of refinancing. So whenever someone is looking to purchase a vehicle, what are some things that they should be thinking about before they go into and buy?
So I think, it's similar to what Bob said on the refinance. The first thing is you need to determine your goal. And Bob touched on a lot of these questions already of, how much can I afford? How long are you planning on keeping the vehicle? And as times have changed now, as a lot of people are starting to work from home, you need to think about, how much now are you really going to drive that vehicle? Of course, this won't last for long. I'm praying that it doesn't last much longer. But, now that people are going to be working from home, people may be driving less miles. So that may impact the car that you decide to purchase. And then the other thing is, check around on the types of vehicles that you're looking for. There could be similar models and things like that. We have some options on our website on coastal24.com. We also, just a tip that I picked up years ago, before you purchase, you may even want to look at, should you maybe rent the vehicle for a short period of time and just see, even do you like the way that it feels and drives and, things like that, looking at the gas mileage. Those are all important things whenever you want to purchase a vehicle.
That's so true. And most dealerships actually have rental car fleets, and people do that. They'll go in and they're looking at, a Ford XYZ, and they just want to go in and drive it for a week, make sure they like it. So they're familiar with that. That's a great idea. Now, something else that I wanted to add is warranties. Everybody wants to know, should I get a warranty? So the only warranty that you can buy actually comes with the car when you purchase it. That's a manufacturer's warranty. Everything else is referred to as a vehicle service contract. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're thinking about buying a vehicle service contract, you want to ask yourself, how long am I going to have this car? If you're one of those people that trades out of their car every 2 to 3 years, you don't need to buy a warranty. It's not going to do you any good. The manufacturer's, or you don't want to buy a service contract. The manufacturer's warranty is going to get you through those first couple of years. So think about things like that before you buy. Again, if you have questions like that, you can reach out to a representative here at Coastal. You can ask for me. Anybody can get you to me, and I'd be more than happy to help you guys out any way I can. But it's good stuff the warranties are only come from the manufacturer. Vehicle service contracts come from the car dealerships.
Great.
Awesome.
So once everyone asks themselves the hardest questions, they found their right vehicle, what exactly are they going to need whenever they're wanting to purchase their vehicle, Crystal?
Again, very, very easy, as you mentioned before. If you are going to a dealership directly, they will be able to let you know the things that you need to bring there. If you are trying to come to Coastal and, get a pre-qualification here, get the vehicle and then bring it back, to do your financing here with someone at Coastal, which we're happy to do that, then you will need your proof of insurance and your driver's license. And then also you'll need a buyer's order from the dealer. So you'll want to make sure that you bring that information as well. Easy?
Great. Yeah, very easy. Yes, and they can apply online as well, correct?
Absolutely. Same process. The only thing is when you get to that link there on Coastal 24, it will ask you, are you doing a refinance or a purchase? It'll ask you the purpose of your loan, and you'll just select that in the drop down, and then the questions will guide you straight through. Very, very, very little information there needed.
Great. That's perfect. Okay. So we've already discussed some credit reporting tips, refinancing, buying a vehicle. Now we're going to talk about some things that you should watch out for. So the first thing is a straw purchase. Makes me scratch my head a little bit as to what that is. Bob, can you explain that a little bit more as to what a straw purchase is?
Yes, a straw purchase is a car that you are purchasing for somebody else, but it is in your name, and it is a no-no. You never want to do that. If it is a child, an underage child that you're purchasing a vehicle for, 100% fine. That is okay. But if it's an adult and they have asked you to buy a car for them and go in and be that straw buyer, that's a no-no.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of situations at the credit union where someone, has, signed for someone else. And, we have seen the unfortunate situation, where, the person wasn't really aware of maybe exactly what they were doing. And so, of course, we have handled those situations delicately and rectified all that we could on those situations. But, times change, things change. So you do always want to be really super careful because with the straw purchase, the person is signing, you are signing on behalf of the other person. And then the other person is not signing their name on the contract or for the loan at all. So if that person does not buy pay the loan, you are left holding the bag. So, if it didn't get paid, Coastal would be contacting you saying, hey, we need payment for this car loan. And a lot of times we'll hear, well, that's not my car. And so it's always just better safe than sorry. It's definitely not. I mean, of course, we can't tell our members what to do, but we do, strongly discourage from doing that. Absolutely.
So can you both go into a little bit more detail as to hidden and excessive fees and what they should watch out for with that?
Sure, absolutely. So, whenever you are signing a contract, whether you're signing that contract here at Coastal, another financial institution, the dealership, wherever you are, we always want to encourage our members to read their contracts, read their loan documents very thoroughly. And sometimes we have seen or heard of situations where there may be some fees there that the member is being charged that they weren't either aware of or they didn't quite know what it was. And the main point behind watching out for these is just knowing what you're signing for. It's super important. We never will want to see a situation where our members, feel like they were tricked or, they weren't really aware of what they were getting. Bob, I know you have some stories on that for all of your years of experience in the auto industry.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to, you should be allowed to walk out of a car dealership with the contract before you sign it. It's totally acceptable. If you just want to run it by a family member, a friend, a colleague, you feel free to look at that finance and insurance manager and say, I really need somebody else to look at this for me. Can I bring it back tomorrow? And don't sign it. And if you just want to have somebody else review it, make sure everything's okay, that should totally happen. If they balk at it and say, no, you can't leave with this, that I would consider that a red flag. So it's a standard practice. Just if it doesn't feel right, or even if it feels good, but you just want to have somebody else look at it, I suggest doing that.
So there are now a few more things that people should watch out for. There's a damaged or a lemon car is what it's called, that they do exist. Can you go into that a little bit more for us, Crystal?
Sure. So most people have probably heard of this, the lemon laws. These are vehicles that they may have been impacted by a flood, or they may have some type of major mechanical problems, things like that. And the best defense against this is getting a vehicle history report. This is something else, just like what Bob was talking about. If you are at a dealership or something like that, and you ask to see the vehicle history report, and maybe there's some hesitation on that being provided, that's probably another red flag. You should always be able to see the history, of that vehicle. Has it been serviced properly? Has it been in an accident, whether it be minor or major? How many previous owners? All types of information will show on that vehicle history report. Definitely something that I would never personally purchase a vehicle without looking at that.
Yeah, and that pertains to used cars. No new car should have any damage to it at all.
Right.
So a used cars are not perfect. You understand that when you go in, so you always want to have that vehicle history report. Totally agree.
Gotcha. So there are also a few more things people should watch out for. They should know their payment plans. Bob, why is that so important for them to know their payment plans?
It's all about your budget. You need to make sure that you look out for balloon loans. Balloon loans are something that may sound like a great idea. Could be affordable now. I have a real low payment now, but in a couple of years, when the term's up for the loan, I owe them $6,000 or $7,000 or some astronomical amount of money that you have to come up with. I really would suggest looking, do I have a mortgage payment that I pay on the 1st? Make sure you have your first car payment on the 15th, if that works out for you. Or if you get paid once a month, you pay everything once, it doesn't matter to you. But look at how you pay your other bills and just try to have things line up so you're not going to be struggling to make those payments when they're due.
Yeah, and another thing I encourage with your payment plan is, for example, my auto loan payment, personally, I have it set up on an automatic payment. A lot of times we get questions at the credit union about, hey, I paid my payment. This time more interest came from my payment than last time. Why is that? And so one thing that I've always done for many, many years since being in this industry is I've had my auto loan payment automatically come out on the day that it's due. Consistency is good, just like we talked about earlier. History is good, stability is good. When we talk about things like that with credit, consistency is good too. So, I have my payment coming out once a month automatically, so that I don't see the big deviations in, this much went to interest versus this much went to principal on a particular month. And so, that's a great tip to make sure that you are paying, the same day of the month. The other huge tip with the payment is if you have the ability, if your payment is, $375 a month on your car payment, if you have the ability to pay $400 a month, cutting that interest over the life of the loan is super important. You could pay it off early, save yourself some money. And you want to always make sure that you pay that little extra that you pay. The best practice on that is to pay it on the same day that your regular payment is made as well. And I think, if members do that, they'll see a significant difference on the amount of interest that they're paying. Because when you get that loan document and you sign and you see the interest rate and you see how much you are going to pay for that, that car over time, whether it's a purchase or a refinance, sometimes you're like, wow, that looks like a lot to me. And that is a great tip to cut that interest because you are charged interest on your principal balance, how much money you owe on the loan. And if you pay a little bit extra, you'll cut that balance faster and save a lot of money over time.
Great. Now, there's one last thing that people should watch out for, and it's checking your paperwork. Bob, can you go into why someone should check their paperwork?
Yeah, and Crystal touched on that earlier. You're signing a contract, and it's not a living, breathing contract. As soon as it's signed, there's no cooling off period. Some dealers will allow a certain period of time to be able to bring the vehicle back if you haven't exceeded some mileage. But generally speaking, once you sign it, you're done. You owe it. So make sure that you know what you're signing. Go line by line. If you have any questions, ask. Don't be afraid to look at the back of the contract. That's going to have a lot of the legalese describing what it is that you're signing. Anybody who is signing you out at a car dealership or in a coastal branch would be able to explain everything in great detail. If they can't, they will find somebody who can. That's the biggest advice I could give you there.
Great. Well, these have been some great tips and tricks. The next thing is that it seems like we are getting some questions that are coming through. So one of the very first questions is, should I take advantage of 0% financing from the dealership? Is there a catch to that, Crystal?
I am going to deflect that question to Bob. He spent many, many years in our auto industry and working in dealerships before joining the credit union. So I'm going to let Bob answer that one.
Yeah, it's not as simple as free money, which free interest. Generally speaking, the more higher end cars that hold their value well don't offer 0%, and that's because they don't have to. The cars don't depreciate very much, and you'll notice that some of the higher end imports, you don't see a lot of 0% interest rates. And I'll explain something else. So if you have a car dealer and the manufacturer is offering the 0% financing, or you can have $10,000 in rebates. You might want to take the $10,000 in rebates and get a really low interest rate, because you're actually going to pay less for the car if you combine the low interest rate with the high rebate. And F&I would be able to print up both of the contracts and show you the difference. So here's 0%. Here's your total of payments, 0% through the manufacturer, or here is the great rate you got at Coastal, combined with taking off the thousands of dollars in rebates, and you can look at the total of payments and see, wow, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a low interest rate and take my rebate, and it works out well for all parties involved. So there's tricks to it there. It just, don't be afraid to ask to see both contracts. They can print both of them. You're not going to sign both contracts. You just want to see the information on them so you can compare.
Great. That's a great answer to that. So it looks like we're getting in another question. The second question is, does my credit score go down when I apply for an auto loan? Crystal, can you explain that a little bit more to us?
Sure. Lauren, anytime your credit is pulled, you will see on your credit report something called an inquiry. And generally, if you're looking at your credit report, it'll show at the bottom. So we have when we're pulling credit, something called a soft pull and a hard pull. A soft pull on your credit is typically like when you're doing something like you are, maybe applying for employment or utilities or something like that. Those type of inquiries do not impact your credit. But when you go to apply for an auto loan, a credit card, or a personal loan, something like that, that is what we call a hard pull on your credit, and it can impact your credit. And the most important thing with that is quantity. So if you are doing something like your car shopping, and maybe you are going to several different dealers and having your credit, all pulled there in a very short period of time, that probably would not impact your credit as much as if you were doing it over a longer period of time. Now, the easy way to solve that is just by simply coming to Coastal, and we can help you out with that purchase, whether it is a purchase or a refinance. But it really depends on, Lauren, the amount of time between those credit pulls, and if you are shopping for something that is like type. So if you're going from a mortgage to a auto loan to a credit card, that would have more impact than if you were shopping for something like type, like if you were auto loan shopping.
Great. It seems like we have one last question that has came in. So someone says, my son wants me to co-sign an auto loan for him. Is that a good idea? Bob or Crystal, do either of you want to?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So
I knew he would.
So yes and no. Yes, if you can afford to make that payment, if your son doesn't make the payment, you are 100% as responsible. There's this urban myth that, oh, that's not my loan, I just co-signed for somebody. No, it's your name on the contract. And if that person does not pay, you are beholden to the debt. So, if you have the ability to help a person in need, a family member that would like to get started in credit, and you can afford the payment, and they're a responsible kid, and you want to help them out, it's okay. But I would stop it at that. If you have any doubts at all about that person or your ability to cover that payment, if they don't make it, you gotta turn them down. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
And also with that, Bob, I would just say monitor the account. So, if you're co-signing and you both are on the loan, and your son is making that payment each month, you want to check in. You'll have, they would have full access to it on our digital banking, using our mobile app, however they like to communicate and see coastal information. So I would definitely monitor to make sure that payment is made if they do decide to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Those are some great answers to all those questions. So how in the world can people reach you guys? It says that you can apply online at coast24.com.
Yeah, so like we've mentioned it several times, I think all three of us here, coastal24.com. You can get a plethora, lots and lots of information, by simply going to the top. There is a borrow tab, and you can see there how to apply for auto loans, and all of that good stuff is there. And then we've mentioned several times, of course, in the times of COVID, we're focusing a lot on our digital path. And so our digital team is ready, happy to get any applications and answer any questions, and they will be happy to assist.
Great. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. And I want to thank you, Crystal and Bob. You have just given us some great insights into auto buying. So thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you all so much for watching. And I hope you both have a great day.
Thank you.
You as well.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.